Welcome to Woodstock City Council. It is Thursday, May the 6th, 2021. This meeting is being held electronically in accordance with Section 238, subsection 3.3 of the Municipal Act and Section 16.6.24 of the City of Woodstock Procedural Bylaw. This meeting is being live streamed on the city's YouTube channel, and a recording of the meeting will also be posted on the city website following the meeting. An agenda for the meeting can be found on the Agenda, Meetings, and Minutes page of the city's website. Councillors will be raising their hands in view of the webcam when moving a motion, requesting to speak, and when a vote is being taken. If a member of council is disconnected or having technical difficulties, we will take a recess in order to attempt to rectify the issue. If technical difficulties exist that prevent the meeting from continuing, the meeting will be adjourned and reconvened at a later time. If a councillor needs to leave the meeting at any time, they're requested to inform the clerk. Welcome, everybody. I'll ask all the councillors to turn on their web cameras now. Welcome. Any disclosure of conflict of interest? Seeing none. Any disclosure of new business or matters arising from the minutes? Then we'll go with the minutes from our last regular meeting held April 15th, 2021. Councillor Schadenberg.
Yeah, I move that the minutes of the regular meeting of Woodstock City Council held on April 15th, 2021 be adopted.
Thank you. Seconded by Councillor Talbot. Discussion, any errors or omissions? Seeing none, you've heard the motion. All those in favor? And carries. And today we have a delegation. We have Teresa Hartel and a request to review the access fees and requirements at the side rear yard. Welcome. Oh, sorry, I think it's Curtis. Welcome.
Thank you, Mayor. I understand I can begin. Okay. Good afternoon, everyone, honorable council members and city staff. I would like to thank you all for facilitating my appearance before council today. I understand that you've all been given a copy of my concern today and associated photos and communication with city staff. To summarize, these concerns are accessing city land which borders my property in order to repair a retaining wall that is along the mutual property line, approximately 100 feet long. Behind our property, to the south, is city park land, which was previously UTRCA, the Conservation Authority land. There is a gate right at the forest. On the east side is the area where the wall repairs need to take place. To access this area, there is a gate at Meadowwood Lane and a wide path which consists of dirt and a concrete honeycomb surface about 100 meters long. Adjacent to the path is a stormwater management pond. Many city vehicles and contractor vehicles have traveled on this path over the last 7 years. Hence, the path has some ruts, depressions, and cracks. There are no remaining live city planted trees in the area that we would need to work at. In 2014, the developer who was developing the subdivision and the stormwater management pond for the city used our land to access the areas required for the pond and the subsequent fencing they installed along the park and path. No permission was ever asked for nor given by us. Our contractor at the time who installed the wall requested permission from the developer to access the city side for the wall excavation, but permission was denied. Thus, the wall installation became significantly more difficult, and now the wall is being pushed out and is leaning outwards to 7 degrees. I contacted the city to advise them about the repair plan and request any assistance or advice they could give, and obtain access to do these repairs. The result was no assistance, and I was informed I would need an access permit. Okay, if I need an access permit, I expect a fee, perhaps a fee like $100 or $200. Instead, I'm told I need to pay a fee of $2,260, a security deposit in the form of a bank draft or certified check in the amount of $10,000, and have $2 million in insurance, listing the city as an included party. Now, this is explained by some persons not having done things properly in the past, resulting in damage to city property, which then is funded via the taxpayers, resulting in these high fees. I, for one, have paid over $60,000 in the last 7 years in property taxes. And if we get out a pen and pencil, one could figure out where all that should go. Now, I'm not a big company, just a homeowner. My current contractor is a small operation who, by the way, has $1 million insurance policy. To increase that to $2 million, the fee is going to be over $1,000. And this is just a project that will take a week or so. It is not some big project, no matter how it may look. There's really nothing in our path to damage. And if there was, by chance, something did get damaged, I would see to it that it was repaired and paid for. While I can appreciate the need for a permit to access city land and an appropriate fee, I cannot appreciate a blanket fee for all of this magnitude, resulting in an exorbitant requirements, mostly of a financial nature. As I said previously in my application, it is likely to encourage non-compliance on a significant scale. And one only needs to walk the city paths and trails in the area to observe multiple residential projects that could only have been done by city land access. And after multiple consultations with area neighbors, nobody provided information about any permit being obtained, including large contractors. That's not to say that it doesn't happen, but it is likely a rarity. And I'm also curious why the city park's access fee is this much, while in some research in possibly section 710, I found that the building access adjoining property fee is $150 with a deposit of $500 to $2,000 and $1 million insurance. So I am in agreement with getting a permit. I'm just asking for it to be reasonable. I want to fix this wall and pay for all the labor and all of the materials and have it done right. And I accept that the city can't or won't help. But am I reminded that the city gave approval for this original wall 7 years ago, both before and after installation. Thought there was a technical glitch there. Okay. I must say I'm not interested in legal actions, but I want to get this wall fixed to prevent any property damage should this wall fail or injury to anybody. I'm just asking the city to open the gate and be reasonable and seriously consider amending this policy for the future. That is my submission.
Thank you. Questions of council? Councillor Schadenberg?
Yeah, first of all, I'd like to say that I've met with Mr. Hartel before. I think it was April the 13th that we walked his property in the stormwater management path behind his house. I guess maybe one question I want to ask you is, first of all, the main access to the trail system, the Hickson Trail, is not the same piece of property. Just so you can clarify on that, Curtis, because there isn't a lot of pedestrian traffic down this stormwater management pathway into what we refer to as the square or Sawtell Park.
That's correct. Everything you just said is correct. So could you hear me?
Thank you. Further questions? Seeing none, thank you very much for your presentation, and we'll deal with that right away here. Is someone prepared to make a motion? Councillor Accioni,
Thank you, Your Worship. Moved by myself that Woodstock City Council refer the request to Curt Hartill to review the park access fee for temporary construction access to staffer report.
thank you. And a seconder, Councillor Talbot. Discussion. Councillor Lauder.
Thank you. Could I have Mr. Connors speak to this request? I think that both Parks Department and maybe the Building Department have spent a lot of time on it, and if he could speak to it. Thank you.
Your Worship, through to the councillor's question. Yes, this is a fee and damage deposit, and the process, the access fee came in 2019, and the parks access policy came in March 2020. The fee was put in place so that taxpayers would not have to pay to restore public lands due to individual backyard projects. This is both what we found as far as historical damage that we've got in our parks system when folks do these things. The damage deposit, however, is completely refunded if there is no damage to the parks. This also, the $2,000 fee also is dealing with staff time, which is the processing, the admin, the site evaluation before and after, and managing follow-up, any mitigating projects due to the land, due to public lands being disturbed. So that's why that fee is in there as well.
Thank you. And one question. So to rectify this, it would have to go down the honeycomb path to be able to get to that, to work on it. That's the intent.
I believe so. Yes, that would be why the request was to go through the park, the city public lands.
Thank you. Further questions? Seeing none, you've heard, Councillor Schadenberg.
Yeah, I just really want to, maybe not just a comment or a further clarification on this. It's one thing to sort of say you want to go to the staff for a report. And what specific would that report be? Would that report being to go by a case-by-case instance to sort of say, well, the Hartill family might be able to get an access fee reduction based on this or based on that, versus the Smith family, the Jones family 2 years from now, could be a completely different scenario. And the reason I say that is, again, because I've met with the Hartill family myself, is I know that Filippo D'Amelio and everyone in the engineering department has been down this road, and Rita Horan at the Parks Department and Brian Connors have been down this road. I'm not so sure what kind of a report they could come forward with that wouldn't already suggest why and where they've come up with these numbers and the history on these numbers, because that's the numbers they're presenting to the family. The access fee is $22.60 with the $10,000 damage fee that they would get back if there is no damage. Again, I don't think engineering or Parks Department could come back with any kind of report different than what they've already sort of told us and outlined to Hartills.
Councillor Accioni.
Thank you, Your Worship. The idea behind the report, for myself anyways, presenting it, was to look at a more of a case-by-case basis. I know we've gone over this a fair bit before, but I mean, I really do believe Mr. Hartill has a very valid point. It's to a benefit of both the city and himself. I think if somebody was putting in, say, a pool, that's solely for the homeowner, and that's kind of a little bit different when you have contractors and everything else, when it's could be considered beneficial to not only the homeowner, but also the city. I think that's something to consider when you are talking about fees this size.
Thank you. Further discussion? Councillor Talbot?
Thank you, Your Worship. I tend to agree with that as well. I read all the adjoining correspondence from the engineering department and the parks department. And I mean, what we're basically asking is to review the access fee for temporary construction. And I understand that we, as a city, we charge back anything, you know, our costs related, and that's how we come across our fees. But sometimes I think that they can be a little bit extreme. And I mean, I look at, in this particular situation, here is a resident wanting to make something better and safer. And I don't know how we would even manage it on a case-by-case basis. And I know these things are looked at very closely by staff. But when I look at what his investment is going to be to fix this particular error, not due to any fault of his own, I guess that's when I start to question it. And I just wonder how many times, or I don't know if Mr. Connor would be able to let us know how many times that this fee has actually been incurred by a resident. Would you have that information, Mr. Connors?
Your Worship, through to the councillor's question, I do not have the exact number. I do know that there has been several, probably more than 8 or 9 since the access fee was put in, probably much more than that.
Would they have been as extreme of repair that was necessary to have taken place?
I'm not, like, a lot of times it's pool installation, especially in the newer areas like Ludington Park. Other times it's for backyard renovations, that type of thing, where they need to put heavy equipment in through the park.
And was there any questions at that time, Mr. Connors, from the residents about the fee?
Nothing that hit my desk. The park supervisors are the ones that are dealing with the residents as far as walking them through the process.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Schadenberg?
Yeah, I guess just as a last statement, I mentioned earlier, of course, that any heavy construction equipment wouldn't be blocking the Hickson Trail whatsoever, which is the actual trail that goes obviously towards Hickson and whatnot. This would just be, in essence and in theory, if you want to put it down to its basic terms, would be heavy equipment accessing the basin of a stormwater management pond, which is dry. And sure, there's honeycomb brick and stuff and whatnot through there, but we're not talking about a heavily trafficked area whatsoever as far as the trail goes, nor a park with a playground equipment or tennis courts or anything in it, nor even a very popular trail such as the Hickson Trail, because like I say, 99% of the traffic through there would be on the Hickson Trail and not the stormwater management pond access trail.
Thank you. Councillor Talbot?
Thank you, Worship. And I don't know who wants to answer this question, but if it's not actually a park, what is the fee similar, or do we charge a fee to access city property in order to do other things? And is this fee comparable, or I don't know, can the engineer answer, or can the CAO answer that question?
I guess I'll take that one for not hearing anybody else jumping to it. It's my understanding that the fee and the security deposit is applied to any use of public lands whatsoever. It is a relatively new, as Mr. Connors has pointed out, requirement, and you know, I think it's important to note that there is a distinction here. In many cases, what we're asked for access through active city parks from residents who want to build a pool in their backyard. And when we're dealing with an active city park, it's turf. And generally people want to build pools in the spring when the turf is not firm. And so the type of construction activity associated with a pool generally results in significant rutting of the turf, which is a liability issue for our park, for anybody, any child or adult who's walking or running through a park. And so it does take many return visits, many inspections by park staff to return that turf surface back to an acceptable state from a risk management perspective. It doesn't happen quickly. In this particular instance, what we're having is, it is public land, but it's not publicly accessed public land. It is not turf, but in saying that, it is land that is subject to damage. It is land that, if disturbed, will result in erosion, and it will require reinstatement and multiple trips back to ensure that it's stabilized once all the work is done. And I think it's important to point out that there is a city offsetting the cost associated with the fee in the terms of the staff, the staff time of dealing with the inspections and the reinstatements. And that has to be offset by the savings that the homeowner realizes by having easier access to the back of their property. Any contractor will provide a quote when they're building a pool. If you have difficult access because you have a narrow side yard, you're paying a premium for difficult access for that project. So a homeowner who doesn't have the benefit of being able to go into a city park to get into their backyard has to pay that premium. They don't have a choice. And so when we're assessing a fee, we're simply trying to cover our costs, but it's still vastly cheaper than the alternative for the homeowner to do it entirely within the confines of their own property.
Thank you, Mr. Curry. Can I withdraw my seconding of the motion, or do you want to vote on it and let it fail? Or
I'll leave that up to you, which way you want to go on that.
well, I will withdraw my seconding of that motion. Thank you.
Okay, and Councillor Accioni, do you agree with Councillor Talbot withdrawing her seconding? Yes.
Actually, no, I'll still stick with that. I do think there is still a conversation to be had in cases like his, where it is kind of a dual beneficial. I'm not sure the fee should be so high. I do agree strongly in the security deposit or the damage deposit, whatever you want to call it, that could be refunded to them, but I'm going to stick with my motion and let everybody else decide. Thanks.
Okay, so we'll leave the motion on the floor with the first and seconder, and we can go ahead and vote. Is there further discussion? Okay, seeing none. All those in favor? And opposed? And the motion fails. Thank you. So I guess what we should do is have another motion for this matter. So we could receive Councillor Tate.
I'll make the motion to receive his information.
Thank you. And the seconder? Councillor Talbot. Discussion? Councillor Tate?
Yeah, I'll just comment on this since receiving his information. Definitely have to have the security deposit that is returnable if there is no damage. And as the CAO mentioned, this is a smaller fee than what the homeowner would have to pay if they had to go in the other way. And we've already had, from what the Director of Parks stated, we've had numerous other people pay this fee. So I'm not going to set a precedent allowing one. Some people have to pay and some not. So this goes on the taxpayer. This is staff time that all of us will have to pay. So totally understandable.
Thank you. Further discussion? Seeing none, you've heard the motion. All those in favor? And this is to receive his information. Oh, I've got one frozen here. We'll just wait a second. Oh, and on yours is Councillor Talbot still frozen? We'll see if audio is working here. We might have a limitation in our bandwidth, and it looks like we just lost one councillor. Okay, what we'll do is we'll take a quick recess right now and see if we can bring the councillor back, and then we'll continue on with the vote. So hold on, everybody.
Thanks, Chris. Sorry about that.
Everybody's got their hot spots. All right.
My own internet came back, even though I was trying to put my hotspot on.
All right. So we've got everybody back. So we just need.
I can't get my
Counselor
video. Yeah, I can't get my video on now.
Uh-oh, we hear your voice.
Yeah. It won't, yeah, they're asking me to start it, but I can't get it on.
Oh,
There it
there we
is.
go. We've got you. So we were on the motion to receive the presentation as information. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? And opposed? And carries. And next up, we have the consideration of correspondence, and we have the one supporting the 3-digit suicide and crisis prevention hotline. Councillor Accioni.
Thank you, Your Worship. Moved by myself, the Woodstock City Council support the resolution received from the town of Caledon and also endorses and supports 988, a 3-digit suicide and crisis prevention hotline. And further, that this resolution be circulated to the Honorable Patty Hadju, Federal Minister of Health, the Canadian Radio, Television and Communications CRTC, the Honorable Dave McKenzie, Oxford MP, and the Honorable Ernie Hardeman, Oxford MPP.
Thank you. And a seconder. Councillor Lauder, discussion. Councillor Accioni.
Yes, thank you. I brought this forward. I thought this was quite interesting. Was actually shocked to learn that since COVID, the pandemic has started, there's been an over 200% increase in suicides. It's really sad. We've been having troubles for years, in my opinion, and for someone that's known many people with different mental health issues over the years. The simple case of learning a 10-digit number, and some cases you even hear them having to wait or be on hold, even worse when they're calling in for help, is just unbelievable. So if the United States is taking this over next year, and I think it's a great idea, and hopefully everyone will agree. Thank you.
Thank you. Further discussion? Seeing none, you've heard the motion. All those in favor? And carries unanimous. And next one on the agenda, we have the correspondence regarding the invasive species Phragmites. Councillor Schadenberg.
Yeah, the Woodstock City Council supports the resolution received from the city of Fort Erie and the township of Archipelago regarding road management action on invasive Phragmites. And further, this resolution be circulated to the Honorable Caroline Mulroney, Minister of Transportation, the Honorable Jeff Urick, Minister of the Environment, Conservation and Parks, the Honorable Jonathan Wilkinson, Minister of the Environment and Climate Change, and the Honorable Dave McKenzie, Oxford MP, and the Honorable Ernie Hardeman, Oxford MPP.
Thank you. And a seconder. And Councillor Talbot. And discussion. Councillor Schadenberg.
I guess the first thing is I have a question for Brian Connors, because I know even within the city of Woodstock and the Parks Department, we have situations around waterways and whatnot that Phragmites can be an issue.
Your worship, through to the councillor's question. Yes, Phragmites is in Woodstock, and it is a problem both around our swim ponds right now and along our roadways. We are working this year to start to deal with that problem. We've got the beginnings of a program. It does take about 3 or 4 years to completely eliminate Phragmites as it does get in, and it's difficult to get out. So we're working on that, but it will take several years to manage this.
Obviously, the part of this resolution is to want or suggest to the province of Ontario and to the Ministry of Transportation to remove Phragmites along highways, which will certainly help in waterways. For example, our city council promoted the Ducks Unlimited project of Phil Holst on the south side of the 401 to eliminate Phragmites and spruce up a waterway, actually 2 waterways south of the 401 for water quality. And part of that was getting rid of the Phragmites there, but if it's still growing along the 401, it's going to crawl back pretty quickly. So that's why I wanted to show favor for this motion.
Thank you. Further discussion? Seeing none, you've heard the motion. All those in favor? And carries. And for any of the residents who recall, we had quite a lot of Phragmites around Brick Pond, and many of the individuals that had been helping do the work there from Oxford Stewardship and Ducks Unlimited. And of course, Phil Holst can attest to the major improvement in that waterway and the plants that have since come back after the multiple sprayings. So very good points by Councillor Schadenberg that we want to make sure that the province does what they can along these major highways. So next up, we have the correspondence regarding the prohibition on golfing and other outdoor recreational activities. Councillor Schadenberg.
Yeah, the Woodstock City Council supports the resolution received from the city of Brantford requesting the province of Ontario to withdraw its current prohibition on golfing and other outdoor recreational activities which can be enjoyed while maintaining proper social distancing. And further, the resolution be circulated to the Honorable Doug Ford, Premier of Ontario, and the Honorable Ernie Hardeman, Oxford MPP.
Thank you. And a seconder, Councillor Lauder. Discussion? Seeing none, you've heard the motion. All those in favor? And opposed? Carries. And next up, we have the correspondence regarding the request for paid sick leave. Councillor Lauder.
Thank you. I'll move that Woodstock City Council supports the resolution received from the City of Cambridge regarding the request for paid sick leave, and further that this resolution be circulated to the Honorable Doug Ford, Premier of Ontario, the Honorable Monty McNaughton, Minister of Labour and Training and Skills Development, and the Honorable Ernie Hardeman, Oxford MPP.
Thank you. And a seconder on that one, Councillor Accioni. Discussion? Councillor Lauder.
I'm supporting this, and I understand that they're going to allow 3 days of paid sick leave, but when you have to self-isolate for more than that, around 10 days, I think that people that don't have the sick leave benefits and don't have anything coming in, I think this is really important to at least to have the 10 days. So that's at least during this time of COVID. I'm not saying that it should go beyond that, but I really do think that during this time of COVID that we have to help all those that have to take time off. Thank you.
Thank you. Further discussion? Seeing none, you've heard the motion. All those in favor? And carries unanimous. And that's it for correspondence. So moving right along to administrative services, we have the final tax rates. Councillor Tate.
I'll move that Woodstock City Council approves the final tax rates and the necessary bylaw be passed.
Thank you. And a seconder on that. Councillor Schadenberg. Discussion? Councillor Schadenberg.
Yeah, I have a question for the Treasury, more, I guess, just of a clarification and explanation. The fact that the assessed value of the average home, $257,790, that's obviously an assessed value from MCAP or some provincial government, but let's just explain how that works based on the fact that, of course, we know what the values of houses are doing right now in Woodstock.
Right. Thank you, Your Worship, through to Councillor Schadenberg. That is a mathematical average. So we take the total residential assessment and we divide it by the number of properties, and that's what falls out.
Thank you. Further discussion? Councillor Accioni.
Yeah, thank you. Just more of a statement, and this more for everybody at home. I'd like to say a big thank you to all city staff. I know everybody worked really hard to try to keep this in check and everything else. And I just hope people were watching and kind of were paying attention where everything came from and saw the cuts we did move and what we have no choice with. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you. And especially at a time where some of the services that we offer, we've had to put on hold, and many of the other services that people need in order to have a healthy life here in the community, of course, have been faced with large inflationary pressures and other added costs due to COVID. I know it sounds like a lot, 1.6% increase, but it's a small price to pay, I think, in order to have the quality of life that we have and the level of service we all get. And I'm sure there will be some individuals that will be upset as construction season starts and the roads are getting repaired. They'll be a little upset that they have a small detour, but just know that all of these projects that we do have implications for generations to come. It ensures clean water and clean sewer, everything else for many years into the future. So you've heard the motion. All those in favor? And carries. And our next item on the agenda, we have the transit bus rehabilitation. Councillor Talbot.
Thank you, Worship. I'll move that Woodstock City Council waive the tendering requirements for a transit bus rehabilitation and authorize staff to appoint Mississauga bus, coach, and truck repairs for $73,239.38, excluding taxes.
Thank you. And a seconder, Councillor Tate. Discussion? Seeing none, you've heard the motion. All those in favor? And carries. And I know that sounds like a large number, $73,239.38. Of course, this is one of two buses that are due for the rehabilitation, and our budget was about $300,000. And waiving that requirement, of course, Mississauga bus, coach, and repairs, they deal with the exact transmission and engine that our fleet of Nova buses has. So looks like we may have come in under budget, but hopefully they don't find any other problems as they start doing those repairs. We also have work on our transit to implement that 7th route later on in the year. And so this next motion regarding the conversion of 2 part-time lead hands into 1 full-time position. Look for a mover. We'll go with Councillor Schadenberg and a seconder, Councillor Accioni.
I make a motion that Woodstock City Council approve the conversion of 2 part-time lead hands to 1 full-time lead hand in the transit department.
Thank you. Discussion? Seeing none, you've heard the motion. All those in favor? And carries. And we'll hear a lot more about those exciting changes in the coming months. And moving right along to the construction and detours and inconvenience of that large infrastructure renewal, who would like to close down Huron Street from Leinster to Devonshire? Councillor Lauder, and a seconder, Councillor Schadenberg, go ahead.
I'll move that Woodstock City Council award the tender for the reconstruction of Huron Street to Vacant Construction in the amount of $1,754,232.37, inclusive of HST.
Thank you. Discussion? Councillor Schadenberg?
Yeah, thanks a lot. I'm not sure if our city engineer can answer the question or if it's more of a county engineer question. I know Mr. Gross isn't with us this afternoon, but I understand that the Huron Street reconstruction is going to make it similar to Devonshire, in which there's 1 lane going one way, 1 lane going the other way, and a turning lane in the middle. Is that the eventual plan, along with possibly bicycle lanes as well?
Your worship, through the councillor, you are correct in terms of the section of Huron Street south of Devonshire, which is the county project, and they are starting construction on that shortly. Vacant got that job also. You are correct that there's going to be 1 lane each direction, north and south, and a center turn lane with cycle lanes. This contract here for Huron north of Devonshire, the road section is going to remain the same as existing.
Thank you. Further discussion? Seeing none, you've heard the motion. All those in favor? And carries. And we'll hold them to that 37 cents. Next up is our real estate considerations for 16 Graham Street, the former PUC building. Councillor Accioni.
Thank you. Moved by myself, the Woodstock City Council direct staff to offer 16 Graham Street for sale by request for proposals once necessary studies are complete, And further, that council authorize expenditures of up to $25,000 to complete the necessary studies, with the funds being drawn from the reserve for capital projects. And further, that staff be directed to report back to council for approval of any eventual sale of the property.
Thank you. And a seconder? We'll go Councillor Lauder. Discussion? Seeing none, you've heard the motion. All those in favor? And carries unanimous. And next up, we have the Skills Development Fund. Councillor Tate.
I will move that we receive the report as information.
Thank you. And a seconder, Councillor Accioni. Discussion? Seeing none, you've heard the motion. All those in favor? And carries. And that takes us along to the delegation of authority to lease municipal real estate. Councillor Lauder, seconded by Councillor Tate.
I'll move that Woodstock City Council refer the report regarding delegation of authority to lease municipal real estate to the bylaw section of the agenda, and further that city policy GA 017 delegation of powers and duties be updated accordingly.
Thank you. You've heard the motion. Discussion. Oh, Councillor Schadenberg, go ahead.
I know we have our development officer, Len Magyar, on board this afternoon. I guess the one thing is more of a question that's kind of awkwardly worded in the report, where you're referring to both 474 Dundas Street and 21 Market Street and saying, or the demolition of one of these above mentioned properties. We just want to clarify to the public, of course, that 21 Market Street will never be demolished, really. I just want you to clarify that, Len. I know it's not your job to clarify, but I just thought it was awkwardly worded in the report.
Your worship, through to Councillor Schadenberg, that is correct.
Councillor Talbot.
Thank you, worship. I was just going to add in the ghost of Pauline Brown would come back and haunt everyone if that was to go.
Thank you. No need for anyone chaining themselves to the building right now. You've heard the motion. All those in favor? And carries unanimous. Next up, we have the report from the Clerk's Department on the vacant City Council seat, and we'll deal with this in two separate steps. So the first one is to declare the seat vacant from the untimely passing away of Councillor Ron Fraser. So Councillor Talbot.
You don't want it in a two-part?
We'll do just the first part, and then we'll go on to the next.
Okay. I'll move that Woodstock City Council, in accordance with section 262, bracketed 1 of the Municipal Act 2001, hereby declares the seat of Councillor Ron Fraser for the city of Woodstock to be vacant, effective immediately.
Thank you. And a seconder, Councillor Accioni. Discussion? Seeing none, you've heard the motion. All those in favor? And carries unanimously. And now we'll go with the part 2 for direction on filling the seat. Councillor Talbot.
Thank you, worship. I will move that Woodstock City Council direct staff to offer the vacant council seat to Mr. Todd Petter, and further that City Council schedule a special meeting of council for May 7th at 4:30 for the purpose of staff reporting back to advise of the determination of qualification and acceptance of the appointment. And further, that staff be directed to give the required notice of this special meeting, and that the necessary appointment bylaw be prepared accordingly. And I'd like to speak to it if I get a seconder, please.
Thank you. And a seconder, Councillor Tate. And go ahead, Councillor Talbot.
Thank you. I hope you can bear with me for a bit. Firstly, I'd like to thank the handful of citizens that emailed us expressing their opinion on how we should proceed. But I'd really like to thank our clerk, Amy Humphreys, for the excellent report, giving us the 3 choices that we have, but also the examples of the decisions that were made in those similar situations from the past. Because even though I was there when the examples happened, it's always good to review. Holding a by-election during a lockdown would be totally irresponsible of us. I just want everyone to know that I did not make this motion lightly, and I have spent a lot of time weighing the pros and cons of our possible choices. But in the end, I used my experience to make the decision to put Mr. Todd Petter's name forward. Todd ran in the 2014 election and was elected. I personally think Todd did a great job, and I was disappointed when he didn't run again in 2018. He always did his homework, he worked hard for the community, and he respected his fellow colleagues and staff, even though we didn't always agree. Plus, he added a touch of humor to our sometimes tense and serious meetings. COVID was also another big part to my decision. The fact that we actually haven't met in person for over a year, let alone walk into City Hall to do business, would be an unfair situation for someone with no experience. It is a huge learning curve when you become a councillor. And if Todd is willing to come back, he can hit the ground running, as he has already done the job for 4 years. He also didn't run in the last election, and to the best of my knowledge, has no intentions of running in 2022, therefore giving no unfair advantage. We have a year and a half left in this term, and that could be COVID, so it could be online as it is presently. And asking Todd back with his experience and dedication makes the best sense to me, and I hope that my fellow colleagues will agree. I also don't want to lose sight in choosing Ron's replacement. Ron was a huge part of this community. He loved it dearly, and it was quite obvious that the community felt the same way about him. Ron's passion and commitment never wavered, right to the very end. And I think that Todd has those qualities too. In saying that, I want to share the comments that Todd actually made during his inaugural meeting, because it's about Ron. I'd especially like to mention Ron Fraser. Ron, for you people that don't know, had some health issues and didn't know, I didn't know Ron before the election, but I met him his last council meeting, and we had a great talk in the back room there. Ron is directly responsible for me being on here. I was the 4th councillor elected, and I am sure if Ron had been able to campaign, he would have gotten back in. So I told him he's pretty well responsible if I do good or bad. It's all on him. And I know he's watching this, and he's got a great attitude towards fighting his health problems that he has. Ron, I'm just letting you know, I'm just keeping your chair warm, get through your health problems, come back and run again. And like I said, I took that, I watched the inaugural meeting, and that was a direct quote from Todd. So as I said earlier, I hope my fellow colleagues agree with me, and I would like a recorded vote, Your Worship. Thank you.
Thank you. Further discussion? Councillor Tate?
Yeah, I'll just comment since I second the motion. This was a very difficult position to fill. Ron gave over 40 years of his life to the community. His family shared him with us while he was on council for 2 terms. I think Todd is an excellent suggestion. He understands governance. He understands council is not just one person. It is a group of people, not necessarily always agreeing, but working in the same direction for the benefit of the community. I remember Todd making those comments, and I remember him saying about keeping the seat warm. And I forgot, that is one thing with Todd. He did add a little bit of humor, which when it's very stressful, it was a nice relief. I think it's an excellent choice, and I appreciate Councillor Talbot bringing this forward.
Thank you. Councillor Lauder?
Thank you. I want to thank Councillor Talbot for putting Mr. Petter's name forward. I support Todd. He has spent his last term on council and has been said, as people have said, he knows his governance and his responsibilities as a councillor. There will be no learning curve for Todd. He can step into the position and has always been very keen and supportive of our council. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Accioni?
Thank you. I also thank Councillor Talbot. I think that's an excellent choice, actually. It was a tough one with this. Knowing a bylaw was not, or by-election, I'm sorry, would probably be the best way to do this, but seeing the time and everything else, I agree, it's not the right time. I did speak with Ms. Leatherborough on the phone. She did seem interested in getting on council, though she never did come out and say it for sure. I also got many messages, and the majority were in favor of Kate, I'll admit. I got to admit that I think with everything going on, especially during this pandemic, I think working with Todd again would be excellent. He was great with 4 years, and I would certainly support this. I hope everybody understands that as well for the betterment of the city. Thank you.
Thank you. Further discussion? Seeing none, I will hand things over to the clerk for the vote.
Great, thank you, Your Worship. Before we take the vote, I will remind council that because this is outside of the standard procedure as outlined in our procedure bylaw, it will require a 2/3 majority vote to carry as outlined in the staff report. So Councillor Talbot called for the recorded vote, so we will start with you. Councillor Talbot.
Yes.
Councillor Accioni.
Yes.
Mayor Birch.
Yes.
Councillor Lauder.
Yes.
Councillor Schattenberg.
Yes.
And Councillor Tate.
Yes.
Thank you. That motion carries 6-0.
Thank you very much. And we'll move along. We have vacant positions on boards, and we can entertain one or all based on council's wishes. So looking for recommendation, Councillor Lauder.
At this time, I will recommend the first motion, which is I move that Woodstock City Council appoint Councillor Talbot to the Board of Management Downtown Improvement Area with the term ending November the 14th, 2022.
Thank you. And a seconder on that, Councillor Tate. And Councillor Talbot, you'd allow your name to stand. Thank you. Discussion? Seeing none, you've heard the motion. All those in favor? And carries unanimous. And if there's no need to do any of the other positions at this time, we can see how things go and perhaps revisit along the way, if that's okay with council. I see a few nods, so we'll continue to move along. So next up is bylaws. And Councillor Schattenberg.
That the following bylaws be given a first and second reading. A bylaw to govern and regulate the finances for the city of Woodstock for the fiscal year ending December 31st, 2021. That's 9454-21 and 9455-21. A bylaw to provide for the delegation of powers and duties by council in order to authorize the mayor and clerk to sign short-term lease agreements for the use of vacant municipal buildings.
Thank you. And looking for a seconder on those bylaws. We'll go Councillor Accioni. Discussion? Seeing none, you've heard the motion. All those in favor? And carries unanimous. Councillor Schattenberg.
Yeah, moved by Councillor Mark Schattenberg and seconded by Councillor Connie Lauder this time, that the following bylaws be given a third and final reading, 9454-21, 9455-21.
Thank you. You've heard the motion. All those in favor? And carries unanimous. And today for questions and addresses, we'll begin with, we'll go a reverse order today. How about Councillor Schattenberg? Sorry, you'll have to double click your mic again.
put myself back on. First of all, from the Parks Department, I'd like to thank Chris Kern. He was kind enough to give me a tour of the brand new City Parks Department Works Office. I guess you could call it that, on Springbank Ave at the back part of Cowan Fields. It's kind of interesting, of course, when we approve budgets for construction of buildings, then they're built, to be able to go inside and understand everything that they're doing inside of there and to see the final product. So I want to thank Chris Kern for that. The other thing I wanted to point out or remind people of, if maybe they haven't even heard of it yet, is that the Woodstock Chamber of Commerce has elections going on right now for their board of directors. So you can go to the website woodstockchamber.ca and find out more information. I think only the board of directors voting is for people who are currently members. So maybe it's your opportunity now to join the Woodstock Chamber and see the advantages of that organization, and then vote on the board of directors, because they have until 5 p.m. on May 17th to vote on that. So that's it for today.
Thank you. Councillor Accioni.
Thank you, Your Worship. I just want to do a bit of a shout out to start off with what's on Woodstock Magazine. I think they've done a really good job on how our local government works. I've actually got a few comments, a few people coming to see me on this that they had no idea. I think this was a fantastic idea, kind of putting it in paper and letting people read, and it's quite interesting. And just because we were kind of talking about this, of course, with Councillor Fraser gone, I just wanted to kind of leave one last thing, some advice he gave me before I decided to run for council, and it's really been sticking with me lately. That he told me this. I sat down with him before I decided to run for council, and he told me that imagine how many hours that I think it takes to be a city councillor. And then he says, now double it, now times it by 1,000, and you're almost halfway there to how much time actually is involved to being a city councillor. And lately with us thinking about this has been nonstop in my head. And you know what, rest in peace, Ron. We'll be taking those words forever, and I'm going to leave it at that. So thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Lauder.
Thank you. I just want to thank all the Parks Department for the wonderful trails we have and how well they're kept. And I just get so many comments on how fortunate we are to have these trails in Woodstock. I try to get out and walk almost every day on some of the trails, and there's so many choices, so you never get bored. The other thing, I would wonder if I could have our CAO, David Curry, give us a little update on what's happening with the Capitol Theatre property. I know there's been some discussions going on Facebook, and maybe he can help to clarify a few of those.
Thank you, Your Worship. Through to Councillor Lauder. Council gave staff direction to reacquire the former Capitol Theatre property on Dundas Street West at a meeting quite some time ago, as well as to offer that property to the county for the county to reacquire it for it to pursue its original direction to construct affordable housing on that property. So in the last several months, we have been working, giving the county the time it needs, because there's two properties we're dealing with. One property we don't have any control over. So we've been giving the county the time it needs to work through the arrangements with the current ownership to try and take ownership. I guess the difficulty is that that's just taking quite simply too long. And in the passage of time, there's since been a construction lien that's been placed against the property by the environmental testing company, which satisfying that lien will take all of the proceeds that the city is obliged to pay to reacquire the deed. So waiting for the county ceased to make any sense. So we've begun the process of engaging directly with the current owner, Mr. Tandon, who spoke at council at a previous meeting. Mr. Tandon has just recently retained legal services to assist him as he moves forward. It will undoubtedly take more time as he tries to find his way through this. The city has a right to reacquire the title for the 90% of the purchase price, which is $90,000. That's what we're working towards. But we're also working with property that is encumbered by a number of registrations, financial encumbrances that are registered on title. And we're working to try to clear those as much as possible so that whether we're turning it over to the county or going back out to the market for resale, the title is as clear as possible. Yes, the difficulty is that it continues to sit in its very unsightly condition. The ownership, Mr. Tandon, had pulled the construction hoarding with very limited notice to the city. Even though he still retains ownership, he has abandoned his stewardship rights as an owner, required the city in very short notice to obtain the fencing to hoard it off and to isolate the site because it is an unsafe site. And so we did that. So we will continue to keep the property, I guess, fenced and hoarded as much as possible while we work through this. It will undoubtedly take some time.
Thank you.
Thank you. And did you have anything further, Councillor Lauder?
No,
All
no,
right.
that's all. Thanks.
And we'll go with Councillor Tate.
Yeah, I just want to comment, thank Councillor Accioni for bringing that one motion forward of support for suicide. It has been a problem. I mean, it's always been a problem, but it's gone way up with COVID. And in that vein, I know I've commented on this again, and I know we don't reach very many people with our, but even if we reach one, social media is a terrible use of bullying. I know there's a reason I'm not on it. There's no good that comes of it. I witnessed it firsthand last week and was very disappointed. People using social media for their own benefit, furthering false information, which those people don't know. They're trying to benefit themselves, but in the meantime, they hurt very many people they don't know, people they have no relationship to. And these are the people that always speak out against bullying, but that's what's going on. So please, when you're doing your social media, make sure you have your facts, try and use it for a positive message. It's got to take way less energy to be positive than negative. And on that final thing, that was one thing with Ron. He was always positive right to the very end. Never had anything negative to say. You consider, his entire life was in policing and then politics. And I just want to leave with one final thought that I'm sure this is how he led his life. In regards, it's a measure of one's character is how you treat people that have no consequence to you in your life. And I think that is a full measure of Ron. It doesn't matter who you were, where you came from. He treated everybody fair, and it's a lesson to be learned by a lot. And happy Mother's Day to all the mothers out there.
Thank you. Councillor Talbot.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'm going to keep it short, but you made some comment earlier about construction. I believe that there are only two seasons, winter and construction. And it never seems to matter where I'm going. I keep forgetting that the roads are closed. I still want to go down the same ones, but I have to say how efficient it's been going. There was some work being done up in my area, not on my street, but in close proximity. And the contractor was in and out of there, I thought, amazingly quick and just did an excellent job. So if all of our construction goes as smoothly as that particular one did, it will be really good. But there is always going to be lots of construction during this time. And the only other thing that I wanted to comment on, a little birdie told me yesterday that one of our staff just celebrated working 40 years for the city. And I believe that person would be our treasurer, Patrice Hilderly. And I think actually it might be more than 40 if you consider the different aspects of her employment with the city. But just want to congratulate and thank Patrice for spending that long with us and doing such a great job. That's I have always had a lot of confidence in our Treasury Department and the reports we get, and I hope you're still going to hang around for a while, Patrice. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. And I guess I'll start with the filling the vacant council seat today. I want to express my gratitude to this council for their discussion today. First and foremost, the recognition of Councillor Ron Fraser and his concerted efforts here in the community. I never asked them about how many hours it would take, like Councillor Accioni, but I could assure you of this, that when you get to wear the Mr. T starter kit, individuals believe that you're the only one that makes a decision at the city, and you're the only one that can answer their questions. So it may even be a few more hours if you're sitting in this seat. The discussion today, I think, was a very, very good discussion. We look at the election. Our clerk's department has already started work on the election for next year, for the fall of 2022. Nominations will begin in the spring. We're not quite sure what that will look like next year. We also know that staff have been very busy. They've taken on a lot of extra work, a lot of extra burden during this pandemic, and being able to call on somebody who has the experience, I think, first and foremost, is something that if everything checks out, and at our meeting that we have tomorrow at 4 o'clock, if the clerk receives 2 thumbs up from Mr. Petter and everything checks out okay, I think many of our staff will breathe a sigh of relief, because of course, for an individual that is not directly involved in municipal governance or municipal politics, the learning curve is very steep, and staff do an amazing job with that education that takes place at the beginning of a term for any new councillor, and it is a lot of work. So I think at this point in time, anything that we can do that helps save the citizens money, saves frustration over potential election or the added costs, as well as the staff and their time. So hopefully we'll have good news at the end of tomorrow's meeting, and we'll all be able to get to work on some of those issues with what could be Councillor Petter. And again, the comments going right back to the inaugural meeting in 2014. And I could even go back to our inaugural meeting in 2018. Councillor Fraser thanked former Councillor Petter for keeping the seat warm. So it was definitely back and forth. Now, going on to the What's on Woodstock magazine, I think, again, as Councillor Accioni pointed out, this is a lot of good information there, and what level of municipal government does what's the county's responsibility, what's the city's responsibility. And this is something that perhaps we need to do on a more of a regular basis. And this ties into comments from Councillor Tate recently, and I know that the stay-at-home orders and the new way of doing business this past over a year, many people are starting to wear a little thin in their ability to take that pause and deep breath, and sometimes they need to lash out. And it seems that city employees and councillors and the mayor can maybe be that dog that they want to kick. Recently, I've almost thought about just shutting down my own social media, just closing it up. But then I think about all the wonderful people, the volunteers, everybody doing so many great things in the friendly city. And I don't want to lose that positivity. So I'm going to try my best to continue to ignore any of the negative and the spread of false information, and to the best of my ability, use that platform in a positive way and to help educate. And one of the good examples lately, of course, is as we talked about that correspondence regarding the need for a 3-digit number for suicide prevention. We look at what's gone on in the past year, the number of overdoses, the number of suicides, the increase in the social problems, those quality of life indicators where people end up without their support group. They end up with a loss of income, a potential addiction or mental health issue. And it is unfortunate. And this is something that has always been going on in our community as well as other communities. And when we look at during these times of COVID, of course, it's been magnified tremendously. And there's been a lot of false information out in the community. And again, it was already said, many of these individuals that are giving the false information, that are being negative, that are doing the bullying online, are the same individuals that say, remember people's mental health and come out to this cause and that cause, and don't forget to donate the money. And it is unfortunate that so many of them can be so hypocritical, but we have to just try to smile and educate and remind them what it takes to make a difference here in the friendly city. I definitely want to make sure that anyone who's watching this right now does know firsthand that there are no busloads of individuals coming to Woodstock. The Premier or myself, we have not picked up people by Greyhound in Toronto or shuttled them here in limousines. These individuals, if you don't recognize them directly, you don't recognize every individual in our community on any given day already. Many of these individuals went to school here, had their jobs here, did their grocery shopping here. They were your neighbors, they lived down your street. They're somebody's mother or father, somebody's sister or brother, somebody's son or daughter. Some of them are not from Woodstock. Some are from faraway places like Innerkip, Sweeburg, Norwich. Woodstock is the hub of Oxford County. We have many of the services and the nonprofit groups and the agencies. The problems that we're seeing right now with the addiction issues and transient and homelessness, this is not unique to Woodstock. This is something that's taking place all across Canada and of course all of the Western world. And the city and this council, of course, we discuss this on a regular basis. We've increased our resources to the downtown core, to our police services. But within our community, we have agencies. We have the Community Health Center. We have the county with their Human Services Department. We have Canadian Mental Health. We have over 150 different community partners, some of which receive their funding from the federal and provincial government, and others which feel that some of the actions and directions of those agencies that are funded by our tax dollars through the federal and provincial government still have gaps and are maybe not addressing all of the needs of those that are experiencing these quality of life issues. And that is where we have our nonprofits and our charities and our ministry organizations with volunteers that are also coming alongside to help encourage, to show people where the resources are, to get them into addictions counseling. And just a reminder, if you want to be a part of the solution, there are many volunteer opportunities, and it'll put a face on poverty. You'll get to hear some stories directly from these individuals. And I think it would do a world of good to learn that compassion. So for individuals that are looking at some of the occurrences that are taking place in our core right now and thinking that your council has failed you, I want to tell you that this is the furthest thing from the truth. This council has been working on these issues for years. This council has increased its efforts as we've seen the increase that has taken place. This council continues to advocate with senior levels of government and all of our community partners. And this council is counting on you, the citizens, to be a part of that solution. And in the very near future, we are going to be having a report and a presentation coming to Woodstock City Council and to Oxford County Council from the Human Services Department. So Paul Beaton will be presenting information, and it's going to shed quite a lot of light on what some of the areas where more advocacy can be done with our partners that we have here in the community. So my closing comments may have lasted longer than the actual meeting. So with that, enjoy the nice weather. Make sure you get outside, get that fresh air and sunshine, the vitamin D, the vitamin C, enjoy the trails and parks, and try to be that instrument of change and help somebody else to smile, because they might not have a reason to smile today. But if you just take that moment to help them to recognize how important they are, and you can have them smile, it'll make a world of difference. So with that, I would ask for a motion to adjourn. Councillor Accioni, seconded by Councillor Schattenberg. All those in favor? And we are adjourned.